end of the day, we all live here. At the end of the day, we all should want what's best for our kids. And we can maybe disagree about the way we get there, but I don't think we have a lot of difference about what we want for our kids and our community. And so, you know, figuring out how we work together to make that happen. There's just some stuff we got to do. And, you know, it's a lot easier if you can do it together.
What's going on, y'all? I'm Audrion Paul, and this is There It Is. In this podcast, we get to know business owners, local artists, and local community leaders. And we pretty much go back in time to see what it is that got them through their journey to where they are right now. All right, y'all, so we are here with the president of the Greater Shreveport Chamber of Commerce, Dr. Tim Magner. Sir, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for the opportunity.
It is a pleasure to have you.
Well, it's always great to get to hang out with you.
Thank you. So as you know, because I'm sure that you've seen some of our episodes, we dive deep into the past and come forward to how you got right here. So if you will, enlighten our audience and our viewers to where you were born, where'd you grow up?
So I was born in Washington, D.C., actually in the district, one of the few. And my dad was in the Foreign Service. So we grew up in Thailand and in Japan, and then in D.C., the D.C. area. So I moved around quite a bit as a kid. Yep.
What part of Japan?
Tokyo. We lived in Tokyo, yeah.
Oh, I went to Tokyo for a Boy Scout, I think it was a jamboree,
Yeah,
a while back. A while, yes. So you know about it, yes. We stayed there for maybe, I think it might have been 5 days. Inside those 5 days, we got to stay with a local family, which was great. And then during my years in the military, I was fortunate enough to go to Okinawa, the small island. So I'm not sure if you've been there before.
I haven't been to Okinawa. I've been all over the island of Honshu and up to Hokkaido, but never made it to Okinawa.
What was your favorite part?
My favorite part's actually the people and the aesthetic. It's a very different than the Western aesthetic. One of my favorite places to go is Kamakura, which was the capital in the 1100s, and it's where Zen Buddhism started. And so you go up in the mountains and you have these Zen Buddhist temples, and the way the austerity of the architecture, and it just the blend with nature. It's just it's very different than what we have in the Western tradition, and so I just always appreciated that.
It's actually funny that you say that, because I wouldn't say mannerisms, but just your aura is so nice. I mean, every time I talk to you, you're just a nice person. And when you say that you lived in Hawaii and you appreciate the culture and everything, because people in Japan, super nice. Every time I was there, super nice. So I think a little bit of that rubbed off on you.
I certainly try.
Well, we'll move forward. Born there, raised in different places. Where did you go to school?
College. So I went to the College of William and Mary in Williamsburg, Virginia, because it was small, cheap, and close to home. And I got a degree in government from William and Mary, and I also did a lot of theater there. So I was mostly behind the scenes, but I did some stage work. And then go ahead.
Well, I was going to ask, so before you even got into college, what was your thoughts? What did you want to do? What were you pursuing?
So I actually wanted to do Foreign Service. I wanted to be in the Foreign Service like my dad. And when I got out of school, I took the Foreign Service exam and all that sort of stuff. They weren't hiring. There was a hiring freeze at the time. And so my mom's a teacher, so I went and became a teacher. And I got my first computer when I got my first teaching job, and just sort of really went into the whole technology thing. And that really, it was the early days of the internet, but then it was even before the internet, but I was able to become an educational technologist. I ended up working at a alternative high school at night, and so I taught myself how to use Novell NetWare and all that kind of stuff. And then the school district was at a point where they were starting to hire for technology specialists. So I became one of the first technology specialists for Fairfax County Public Schools. And there were 8 of us, and we each had 13 schools apiece. I mean, it was just a massive undertaking. I mean, they were wiring schools at the time, and I just sort of rode that wave. So I ended up working at the Kennedy Center, building their web presence, and ended up going to be a technology director for a school district, and just a lot of things kind of led me one thing after the other. I think part of what I like to say was of my skill set, if you will, in that context was I could translate. I knew enough ed speak for the educators and enough geek speak for the technology guys, so I could translate. So I got my master's in education at Harvard, and I had the, I guess, education chops, but I also had the technology chops as well, and so I was able to work for a number of different organizations. I worked for Microsoft. I was their executive director for K-12 education, and then I worked for the Bush administration as the director for the Office of Educational Technology at the U.S. Department of Education. So
I want to go back a little bit. I want to go back a little bit back into college. Mm-hmm. So you're gonna laugh at this, and yeah. I'm sure there's a story behind it.
Of course there is.
But I was talking to a few people, and they said you had a story about when you were in college, mm-hmm. that you just jumped in the car and just started driving, spontaneously.
Well, I mean, so when I was in college, my parents lived in Japan, and so this was in the days before credit cards and stuff. So I didn't have a lot of money, and so we didn't get to go to like cool places for spring break. And so a friend of mine and I mean, gas was 80 cents a gallon or something. So, and we had I had a '79 Chevy Impala station wagon, dark blue with baby blue interior. And the speedometer stopped at 85 miles an hour, but that was third gear. This thing had a big V8 in it, and it went. And so we didn't have anything to do, and we had a little bit of money and a full tank of gas, and so we started driving. And we started driving south down 95, and then we decided that that was going to run out pretty soon, so we needed to do something else. So we got to Atlanta and basically took a right and kept going to California.
Just kept going.
Just kept going.
Well, I have heard that there's a couple different paths, and I want to touch on both those paths. Okay. So you have an extensive and impressive history in education, which you talked about a little bit. Mm-hmm. And then to talk about being in administration as well. So I want to talk about what made you continue to go down the road of education specifically? What piqued your interest? What drove you?
It's the opportunity to make a difference. I think, when being in the classroom, there's nothing more thrilling than when you see the lights go on, when you see a student get it, whatever that is. And I was a history teacher. I taught history, I taught theater, I taught English, I taught photography, and so all sorts of different ways to get kids to connect with ideas was really, really exciting. And then when I did theater, I directed theater as well. And that was a really great opportunity to get to know kids outside the classroom, but also really to give them a chance to begin to know themselves. I taught at a French public school in France, and we did, I taught in the American section, and we did American theater. And so being able to do productions and being able to give kids who, maybe they weren't the greatest students, or maybe they weren't, it wasn't clicking for them in school, but they could find that home in the theater, or they could find that opportunity to be themselves, to learn something about who they were, or to in many ways teach other people about who they were, because people didn't, saw them in a different light if they were on stage or if they were behind the scenes and that sort of thing. So education really, really gave me that hook. But the technology piece to me was really was really critical because at the time, you know, I saw the potential that technology had to transform how people get information and what we can do with that information. You know, I think, you know, I was at the sort of the forefront of a lot of the conversations around, you know, technology in the classroom and, you know, one-on-one and, you know, laptops and all of that sort of stuff. And I think at the time it did two things. It democratized information, right? It made it possible for kids from any walk of life to compete because they had the access to information. When you think about it, you know, schools, universities, libraries were built because information was scarce. You came to where the information was because it was difficult to distribute. What technology does is it flips that on its head. Now information is distributed, so what do you come to school for, right? In my view, you come to school to create, to make, to do, to learn how to apply that knowledge.
Well, that's actually one thing, sitting here listening to that and seeing where you came from, almost from groundbreaking of technology in schools to where we are now. I wanted to get your take on how do you feel it is now? Are we exactly where we should be? Could there be more? Because AI has rolled out, but then colleges are kind of shunning AI a little bit for use. What's your thoughts?
My thought is, I think we need to work on I before we work on AI, right? I mean, there is, technology's not a tool, it's an environment. The ancient Greeks were opposed to writing, or some of them, you know, some of the philosophers were opposed to writing because they felt like it would destroy people's ability to remember, right? When you had the oral tradition and you had to remember all those stories, you had to remember all those stories. And so people have traditionally been opposed or concerned about, maybe is a better way to put it, new technology. So, you know, the ancient Greek philosophers were worried about writing. The people who were writing were worried about printing. The people printing are worried about radio, television, right? In part because it fundamentally changes things, right? It changes when you don't have to remember things because you can read them in books or you can write them down. Then it changes what you do when information can be broadcast. But with computer technology in particular, the adoption curve is so much steeper than you saw with any other technology. If you look at it, took, you know, I don't know, it took 30 years for color TV to be available, all this kind of stuff. And so computer technology is the first, especially things like smartphones, for the first time, children and adults are learning them at the same time, right? So think about cars, right? 16-year-olds do amazing things with cars, but no one wants to drive like them, right? So you are in with a car, you have, you know, your kids, you've been driving longer than they have, right? You have, and you can say, no, don't do this, no, don't do that, right? With technology, with computer technology, and especially with smartphones, we don't have that gap, right? We don't have that experiential gap to be able to say, no, because you know what? Your kids are getting the iPhone the same time you're getting the iPhone. You're seeing the apps the same time. That's all evolving. And so we have lost that capacity to be intentional about adopting those technologies. I mean, think about when I was growing up, you know, phone rang at dinner. We don't answer the phone at dinner, right? Right? And, you know, I mean, that was the thing, right?
True, yes.
Right now, phone rings at dinner. Everybody picks out their phone, right? Hey, I got a phone call. Suddenly, that thing in my pocket is more important than this engagement. It has overwhelmed our social infrastructure to the point where there's a level of what, I mean, our grandparents would deem rudeness. And yet the technology is sort of pushed through all of that.
Of course, you know, in some families, they, like you said, they say you're not going to get an iPhone or iPad or anything until X time. But then you have those families that they embrace that culture and they want you to have that so that possibly you can learn faster. Do you think that's the thing?
There's no question that you can learn from technology. I think what we have to ask ourselves is, what are they learning? Right. I mean, if what you're doing with your technology is you're doing Khan Academy and you're learning, discrete algebra or something like that, that's one thing. I think there are lots of ways in which technology, particularly video, can teach you a whole lot. It's much easier, I think, in many ways, to see a visualization of the solar system or how an atom works or chemical reactions or any of that sort of stuff. Seeing a documentary on a historical subject or a place. So the technology can deliver huge advantages in terms of knowledge acquisition. The challenge is that's not just what we do with it. It's also not, in many cases, how those devices are being utilized by and for children and even adults. You have on your phone the ability to pay your bills, the ability to write notes, to shoot movies, do all that stuff. But you've also got Facebook, you've also got other things, Instagram, other things that are distracting to you as well. And one of the things that we haven't done well, I think, as adults, in part because we're learning these at the same time, and in many cases, adults aren't as savvy with the technology as young people are. And so it's almost like, you learned how to drive an ox cart and you're giving your kids the keys to a Maserati. And, if you've never driven a Maserati, you don't know what 600 horsepower will do, right? Exactly. It's the same thing, I think, with technology. And so we haven't been having those conversations as a society, really. And we certainly haven't been having those conversations, I would argue, in schools.
So in this segment right now, we want to kind of make you feel a little bit comfortable.
All right.
Because a lot of people come on the show and they're not as comfortable as we would hope they are, even though we're just talking about them.
Sure.
Just diving into their past. But I believe this segment where we just play a short little game will kind of make you feel a little bit more comfortable.
Okay.
So this is, you probably heard of it before, 20 questions.
Okay.
So I'm going to think of a word,
Okay.
and you have 20 questions to find out what that word is.
Oh, wow. Okay, so we're doing it that way. All right. Okay.
So I have my word right now,
Okay.
and it's up to you.
Okay, so animal, vegetable, or mineral?
Animal.
Okay. Does it have fur, feathers, or scales?
Feathers.
Feathers. Okay. Do you eat it?
Technically, yes. You can.
Well, yeah, you can eat anything. Is it domesticated?
No.
Okay. Is it a raptor?
No.
Okay. Is it a songbird?
So I'm going to say yes.
Okay.
And the reason being is because we weren't specific. It was just bird.
Okay.
It was just bird. So we made the first one easy. First one was just bird. So yes, you got it. As soon as you said, does it have, what did you say, scales, fur, or feathers? I was like, oh. So you've been the president for how long now?
A little over 7 years.
7 years.
7.5 years, yeah.
And coming in, what was your goal?
It's really two goals. I mean, at the time, the chamber was not in good financial health, and so a lot of it was, stop the bleeding, put the tourniquets on, whatever, and just help the organization survive. We've been around for 114 years, right? It's our second pandemic, so it's not really my organization. It's the community's organization, and we're caretakers, and so we have to work in a way that honors that, honors all the people that came before us, that maybe we can help make up for some of the mistakes we made in the past, but also really find that way to be valuable to the community. And so that was really the second goal, is to find that white space, if you will, between all of the other organizations in town, and what's the unique value that we as the chamber can bring. And we boil that down really into two things. It's growing business and building community. And I see those as really symbiotic, because if we don't have a great community, we're not going to have great business. People aren't going to build their businesses here. They're not going to grow their businesses. They're not going to keep their businesses here if we don't have a community that is supportive of that. And the flip side is also true. If we don't have good jobs and good opportunities, then our community is going to struggle. And I think what we're seeing right now is that, I guess it's fair to say there's work to do in both of those areas.
That is true. So it sounds like it has blossomed since when you started 7 years ago to now. And through that journey, of course, things have, took different routes, changed. Based on what you're doing today, do you feel like you are able to teach the entrepreneurs more so? Because with your education, your long, extensive history of teaching, do you feel like you're still close to that, being able to teach entrepreneurs, or you're a little bit removed from that part?
I guess I see my education background really being more focused on the workforce side.
Okay.
We do some business education and that sort of thing, but I really feel like one of the biggest challenges that we have in this community, and I think across the country in many ways, is workforce. It is making sure that we have that next generation of critical thinkers and problem solvers and innovators and leaders that can take care of us. I mean, it's enlightened self-interest, right? I want when I need my knee replaced or whatever, I want a good surgeon doing it. When I need my HVAC fixed at my house, I want somebody to do it. My car doesn't work. We have, when you look at our country, and this is, our world is in the midst of a pretty significant demographic shift. Most your demographic pyramid, it's supposed to be a pyramid, right? You get less old people at the top and a lot of young people at the bottom, right? Ours in America is an hourglass. And so you've got this really odd dynamic where the average age of a teacher is like 50-something. The average age of engineers are close to 60. So you have an entire generation of people who are about to roll out of the workforce at scale. And we don't necessarily have the people at the bottom of the pyramid yet to fill that out. And many of those we do haven't yet found that connection, that employment connection. You read, and I have a little experience with this in my own family. You've got people with college degrees that are underemployed, or you have people who don't have the right education skill set. The skills gap that we have here. It was fascinating. The meeting we just had upstairs right now was for trades for one of the construction projects that's here in town. We have some capacity, but we don't have nearly enough capacity to deal with the projects that we have today. And so, how do we respond to that? How do we get young people interested in? When I was growing up, everybody wanted to be in the NBA, or they wanted to be in, pro football. Right now, everybody wants to be on YouTube or be an influencer. And, the number of people who are actually going to make it to the NBA is vanishingly small. The number of people who are going to make it as an influencer is vanishingly small. And so the likelihood that you can make six figures as a plumber is much higher than you're going to make six figures as a YouTube star. And yet, for whatever reason, we haven't been able to convince many of our young people to head in that direction. And so what we're trying to do is look at things like early childhood education, where 60% of our kids in Caddo Parish are not ready for kindergarten. Okay, 60%. And if you start behind, you're going to stay behind. I mean, the school districts do a yeoman's job of trying to address that. But if you don't know your numbers and your colors and your days of the week and all that kind of stuff, that you're starting behind. And so there's a lot that we can do in early childhood. We know a lot more now than we did 10 or even 20 years ago. But then it comes, what are we doing with our K-12? How are we educating our kids? Are we giving them those opportunities? Do we have experiential opportunities like the ones that you had so that they can go out and swing a hammer, or they can turn a wrench, or they can, explore what it might be like to be a radiology technician or an auto mechanic? I mean, we're not reaching kids clearly early enough. And that's where I think the technology has become a distraction.
Well, that's actually one of the reasons I would ask. So I want you to talk a little bit about YPI. Do you feel that is helping that situation?
It's certainly, I mean, again, YPI, our hope for YPI is really two things. One is that people make friends and people have a social community to be part of, because, it sucks being lonely, right? You want people to have the kind of community where they want to hang out, they want to have friends, they want to do stuff, they want to volunteer together. We're hopefully building a peer group for that. But also, we want to provide them with a career trajectory. The people that you do business with, some of them you knew, and you do business with them because you know them. Or because you've got that connection, or because, hey, we went to that thing together, or we volunteered at that thing together, or whatever. You have those relationships. And that human scale interaction, those human scale relationships are critically important, and are the kinds of things that will, in many ways, make or break your career over time. If you don't, they may not break it, but they can help make it. If you know that person, if you have that relationship, that can be really critical. And so part of it is providing those opportunities where people can make that blend of personal and professional growth, and doing that in a way that hopefully is helpful to them.
And just so everybody knows, YPI, Young Professionals Initiative. Good, yeah. So memberships, and I think this all kind of goes hand in hand. And I'll back up a little bit. So what are the specific goals for the chamber? And then I'll bring it back.
Sure. Again, I mean, everything that we do falls under that growing business build community. And so a lot of the things that we focus on year to year are situational. Some of the things like this year and for the next several years, we'll be working on the building. And that's really important for us for a couple of reasons. It has a practical implication for us. We're sitting in the building now. We want to be able to do these kinds of podcasts or have the technology infrastructure that allows for us to embrace those new modes of communication and new technology developments. But it's also a statement about who we are as a business community. Right? We're investing in our history. We're trying to preserve our history, but we're also reinvesting in our downtown. We want this block of, the corner of Edwards and Travis to be the place where people want to come, where they feel they're going to get support, where they have an event or an activity, or they've got some sort of connection. We want it to be, a showplace for the community, and we hope that by reinvesting in that and getting the community to invest in that we can communicate that. But we're also involved, we've got session coming up. I'll be in Washington next week. We'll go to, assuming the government's still open, we will, we'll be up there meeting with members of Congress, bringing our regional issues to the congressional leadership. Barksdale Air Force Base, the Red River, I-20, I-49, infrastructure, water and sewer, a lot of the things that we're struggling with. We want to make sure that our delegation, the entire Louisiana delegation, knows what we need here in Northwest Louisiana. We'll be down at session for whatever that's going to bring us. We'll be doing a lot of work. We're doing a lot of work right now in public safety. We're really helping to facilitate a lot of dialogue between and among the public safety partners, because we know how critical that is to that community building component. But it's we're going to be, this week we'll have our Go For Louisiana, which is a statewide initiative for early childhood that I'm involved with. They're having a meeting here to encourage families to get involved in that early childhood conversation. So it really is a lot of different things that we're doing. We're supportive of the bond issue because we think it's really critically important that we reinvest in our infrastructure, our water, our sewers, our streets, our public buildings. That's on us, and regardless of whether our parents or grandparents didn't invest to the degree they needed to or whatever, it's on us. So now's our turn to pay our way and hopefully pay it forward so that the infrastructure that we put in place outlives us, just like this building outlived the people who built it.
What are some of your hobbies?
My wife tells people she married her yard man. So
really? So you like a gardener, or?
I'm more do this, do that. So I'm more the strong back than the sharp mind. But when it comes to that, but no. We spend. I like being outside. I like doing projects. Do that. I do a lot of photography. That's my real passion.
Still.
Yeah. I just love travel photography in particular. I love going places and finding those unique views on and just sort of absorbing the natural beauty. It's just wonderful.
So what was your last shot? Where was that?
Well, last fall we were in Paris, and I have this thing. I love the doors in Europe. I don't know if you ever looked at the doors, but they all have like the cool knobs and designs. And so we had a little apartment on the Ile de Saint Louis, and I just sort of literally walked around the block just taking pictures of all the doors. I have doors from cities all over Europe. To me, that's just someday I'm going to make a poster or do something with it. But I just love. The light in Paris is just great for photography, and so that was my last sort of foray.
Okay. Well, with you being the strong back, quote unquote, is that kind of how you take care of yourself as far as self-care? Being in the yard, being outside, or is there anything else that you do?
I'm not much of a couch guy.
Okay.
So I like being out. So whether I'm out, digging up stumps or whatever we had to do, because we had a bunch of trees fall with the storm last year, and so we're still cleaning up from that. But it's that or it's projects. I love making stuff, with my hands, and I don't aspire. I'm not really a finished carpenter. I'm more of a okay, I got it together carpenter. But I put shelves in, built some shelves and stuff, and I love to tinker.
Well, what's the last thing?
So the last thing was the shelves I built. I have a workbench in the garage, and I needed some shelves, so I went and got the rails and built the box and made it, and so now I have a place for my tools. So
your circle. Family and friends. Who is that circle that keeps you going, that you do this for?
It's my wife most of all. I will say, and I don't think you get any argument that I'm punching above my weight there. So I'm very blessed. I'm very blessed in that respect. But it really, I am also blessed with a fabulous staff. The people I like coming to work to work every day because of the people who are here. We are a small but mighty team, and they're just good people. And that one of the things that I like to believe about myself is that I can build good teams. I create the right environment for people to excel, and it's cool when I get to see that happen every day. Our board members, our members, I really do feel like, we have a caretaker mission here for this organization and this community.
What would you say, and this is kind of a two-part question, what would you say is or was one of your struggles in your position now? And then the second part of that, what would you say you see in entrepreneurs probably that they struggle the most with?
I think the biggest struggle for me has been, so chambers are structured differently all over the country. Lots of chambers do economic development. They are the economic development organization. They are the Convention Tourist Bureau. They are the Military Affairs Council. They are, and so a lot of the things that other chambers do, we started in many cases, but they're now standalone organizations. And so one of the biggest struggles for me was to figure out what is that white space. Where does this organization that represents the broadest cross-section of businesses, how do we make an impact? How do we make that value and deliver that value for our members and for the community? And happily, I think we've done that in part by being agile. We've done that, we did a lot of work with the MPC. We did a lot of work with the airport. We're doing work now with public safety or with early childhood. We're trying to be that agile convener, that honest broker, that speaking truth to power, all of those things, that for the broadest cross-section of business, because most other organizations have that single focus. They're the Home Builders Association, or they're the Manufacturers Council, or whatever. And so we imbue all of those types of organizations. And so hopefully, we're speaking for a broadest cross-section, but we also then have a responsibility to be able to intervene, and hopefully we've built a reputation as an honest broker and as a worthwhile convener, that when we say, hey, we want you to come and have a conversation with us, people are willing to have that conversation, and we hope to make progress, in problem solving and all the stuff we need to do. I think the biggest challenge that entrepreneurs face, what I would call the sort of the brain to hand gap, in that it all works up here, right? I can see how that thing's gonna or my mom makes cookies. I'm going to take that recipe and or hey, I'm going to start a business and provide services to brides or whatever it is. But making that reality, making that thing happen, and I think so many times, and you could probably speak to this even better than I can. It's not a straight line. It's meandering. And I think one of the things that we've really struggled with as an organization, and trying to make sure that we're doing, and every day I'm trying to find better ways to do it, is to help be there when people run into the wall. That when they turn around, we can say, hey, come over here or help, and smooth some of that out. Getting people to open up about what they need, and making sure that we're providing that support structure, to me is one of the biggest challenges. And I think a lot of people run into they run out of gas, or they run out of runway before they get enough altitude, in part because they expect that they need to do it all themselves. And I think that sometimes they expect that it's going to be different for them.
To what would you say you owe your success?
A lot of it was my parents. My parents were wonderful people. I'm blessed that they're still with us and still doing amazingly well. And they instilled in us, I think, an understanding that you can do whatever you put your mind to, but that you got to put your mind and your back into it as well. And that nothing comes easy. But yet, if you're fair, if you work hard, that you can figure it out. And I think that that instilled a lot in me. But also this idea that those to whom much is given, much is expected. And the much is expected was much was expected. But I appreciate that now, and I think that's something that drives a lot of what I do, making sure that we are giving back and we are making better.
And I'm absolutely positive you are doing that. I mean, This shows in itself.
Well, thank you.
If there was somebody coming behind you to be president or to do any of the things that you have done up until this point, what advice would you give them?
To be graceful and gracious, because I think that there's a lot to learn. We are in a continuously changing environment, and that a lot of the things that we took for granted, even 2 years ago, right? Nobody expects the COVID pandemic, and so you have to be agile enough to adapt, but you also have to, I think, be graceful enough to do it in a way that's not abrupt, right? And so listen more than you talk. Really appreciate the environment that you're in, and then work together with people to make it happen. I think we're entering an environment in which, togetherness and collaboration are not, people aren't necessarily embracing those as virtues the way that they once did, and yet in my experience that's the only way to success. You watch the All-Star game or something like that, and you got 5 stars on the court and nobody can put it in the bucket, right? Because you gotta work together. And I think if we're going to succeed as a community, if we're going to succeed as a nation, if we're going to succeed in the world, really, we have to get much better at working together, at collaborating, at amplifying our similarities, and honoring our differences or our distinctions. But at the end of the day, we all live here. At the end of the day, we all should want what's best for our kids, and we can maybe disagree about the way we get there, but I don't think we have a lot of difference about what we want for our kids and our community. And so, figuring out how we work together to make that happen. There's just some stuff we got to do, and it's a lot easier if you can do it together. Everybody wants to rule the world.
Oh, that was easy. That might have been too easy. Okay, good. So like I said, it's going to get a little harder.
Okay.
All right. So here is number 2.
It's the Eurythmics. These things. What is it? I forget the name of the song.
I almost don't want to give you any more. Like, it is right there. We'll give you just a tad bit more, just a tad bit.
Is it Sweet Dreams?
See, and that's why I didn't want to give you any more. Yes, you got it. Good one.
Okay. I knew it was Eurythmics. At least you're picking my genre, so.
All right, now this is song number 3, and this is the last one.
Okay.
No pressure.
That's Rick Astley. It's the Rick roll. It's see my senior moments here, man. I got the whole song, but I can't remember.
Oh. I know you can get it.
Yeah.
We'll give you a little bit more. Oh, I know you can get it. I almost want to give you a hint.
God, I'm blanking it.
Nothing?
I mean, I can see the video.
All right, the audience will probably be mad. I'm gonna give you a hint.
Okay, all right.
It's the chorus.
It is the chorus, and I can't get there. Oh gosh, I can't get there. Maybe to the. Build you up, you down, and hurt you.
All right, we gotta count you down.
All right.
3, 2, 1. Never gonna give.
Never gonna give you up. There you go. Okay. Never gonna let you down. See, all right. I just.
That's still good.
I could not get there. I could not get there. Yeah. I will never forget it now. I get rickrolled all the time.
All right, it was so great having you on.
This was awesome.
It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, and thank you for all you do. I mean, again, I mean that sincerely. It's been really great to just see you and your organization blossom, and the variety of things that you do now. It's really cool. I'm real proud of you, and just real grateful for your friendship and your participation at the Chambers.
Pleasure. I'm grateful for yours. Thank you so much. So right now, we're just gonna say into this camera where the audience can find you.
I'm at shreveportchamber.org.
And there it is.